Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome and welcome back to many of you to New York-Presbyterian Hudson Valley Hospital's Teaching Kitchen. My name is Emily, for those of you that don't know me, and for those of you that do know me, thank you so much for coming back and viewing more of our programs. Today's class is Cooking with Herbs 101. You should have received your little packet in your inbox. I will also be emailing it after class if you didn't get it, so no worries. You will get all of our recipes and all of our information on herbs in your packets. Just a few Zoom ground rules before we begin. We are moderator and chef today, so if you have a question throughout the program, I'm actually going to encourage you to unmute yourself, ask your question, and then mute yourself again. Often we have a moderator supporting us through the chat box. She's a little bit busy, so we're going to be working this program together today on Zoom. So just a reminder, if you have a question, you can unmute yourself, ask the question, and then remember to mute yourself again so there's no extra feedback in the background. All right, so that's how this class is going to run. We're going to cook 3 recipes today, and I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about preserving herbs, drying them, freezing them, when is it better to use dried versus fresh, as well as using the stems and the leaves and when to use one or the other. So herbs are wonderful because they have so many wonderful health properties as well as flavor properties. Really, they add tons of flavor to your dishes. So I'm really excited about this class. We did a class on cooking with spices, I think back in October, and it went really well. And that's sort of what got me thinking, well, we need to do an herbs class, and that's sort of how this class was born. So the way that this class will go is we're going to start off with our recipes. And then as things are kind of cooking and simmering, I'm going to take questions and also walk you through some of the things that I just mentioned on preserving herbs and when to use what. So we're going to begin with our first recipe, which is the herbaceous turkey patties. And I call these herbaceous because they really have a lot of herbs in them. So let me just introduce you to some of my herb friends up here. This is our fresh mint, right? Beautiful fresh mint. Everybody knows that great smell, right? Mint is actually, it's somewhat invasive. So if you are planning to plant it in a pot. Because if you put it in your garden, it's going to spread everywhere and take over everything. So you do want to plant your mint in a little pot so that it can stay nice and contained. So we're using some mint today. We're also going to be using this beautifully feathery friend. This is cilantro. And cilantro is really nice. It has really clear, citrusy, bright flavor, pairs well with meats. We'll be talking a little bit more about that. Scallions, one of my favorite things to use. This is our scallion. And many of you may know this, but the scallions often come with these little roots attached. So what I like to do is cut them all the way down to about here, leaving about 2 inches at the bottom, and then put them in some water by a sunny windowsill, and they'll start to grow back these nice green tops. And they'll do that about 2 or 3 times before they stop. So you can get a few more scallions out of your scallions. So we're going to be using those herbs as well as, often confused with cilantro, parsley. So this type of parsley that we're using today is an Italian flat leaf parsley. I prefer it to curly leaf. I find it more palatable somehow. Like I like the texture of it more than the curly leaves. But it's really chef's choice, whatever you prefer. If you are a curly leaf parsley person, please use that. If you like the flat leaf better, please use that. I really do think that there's like 2 types of people in the world, the curly leaf parsley people and the flat leaf parsley people. So I'm a flat leaf parsley person. And then we're also going to be using some fresh rosemary as well, just fresh off the stem. All right. So those are the herbs we're going to be working with. And of course, I'm going to be talking about all the other herbs that are out there as well. So if you're following along today, you're going to want to turn to the page with your herbaceous turkey patty recipe. And I have everything nicely laid out here, our mise en place. So we're using our whole wheat breadcrumbs, the mint I mentioned, cilantro, a little bit of mayo here, some cheese, shredded cheddar cheese, our scallions, lemon, salt and pepper. And then I was going to use water as the recipe calls for, that I wrote calls for water, but I had just made this beautiful chicken stock last week and I thought that's going to add even more flavor. So we're going to be using some of that chicken stock from our class last week. So these are really, really easy to put together. Everything's going to go right into the bowl of the food processor except for the turkey, the liquid that you choose to use, and the cheese. So we're going to start by getting our mint off of the stem. So you're not going to use mint stems because they're too tough. You could certainly throw them into some tea if you wanted to. They do have a little minty flavor. If you kind of break them, you can smell that. So the only way that I would use mint stems is throwing it into hot water for tea. Otherwise, you just want to use the leaves. So let's pop that right in. We're going to add in some whole wheat panko breadcrumbs. And of course, if you are a gluten-free friend out there, feel free to use your gluten-free breadcrumb substitute, some salt and pepper. And we've got some cilantro here. I'm just going to kind of break this up a little bit. We're going to make a nice little paste with this. And then we're going to fold it into our turkey. So let's get it going. And then I'm not going to forget we have to add our mayo. I'm just going to pulse this a few times to kind of break it down. Beautiful. Now let's add our mayo. Oh, and we have to add our scallions too, and let's not forget those. So you can use mayo or olive oil, whatever you want, or a mix of the two. The intention is to add a little bit of fat into this because, as we know, turkey is a really lovely lean meat. So it's nice to add a little bit of fat, whether it's olive oil or mayo. And I'm just going to help the food processor out a little bit and chop these scallions because if I were to throw them in, almost whole, they would just kind of wrap around the blade. So I'll just go down to about there, right? And then we'll save these to grow back. Any questions so far about this recipe? All right. So let's see how we do here. Pulse that together. Beautiful. So we've made a nice paste out of this, and this is really going to flavor our meat. So I've got about a pound of turkey meat there. I've got my shredded cheese. Pop that right in. And now let's add this beautiful mixture, right? This is really going to help to season these patties. Otherwise, turkey can be just a little boring and bland. So this is going to be a nice way to add lots and lots of flavor. Don't forget, we have our salt in here as well, and there's salt and cheese. So you probably don't need to add that much more salt. All right, and yes, hi there.
Are you using light or dark meat on the turkey?
So great question. I'm using an 85% lean meat. Yeah. So 85% is the one I'm using today. All right. So now I've got everything in there. I'm going to add some fresh lemon juice. Hi.
I have a question.
Yes. Hey, how are you?
Good. So
good. What's your question?
How much do you think the breadcrumbs contributes to the overall flavor? The only reason I'm asking is I don't have whole wheat panko breadcrumbs.
Mm-hmm.
I've got Italian breadcrumbs.
So you could definitely use Italian breadcrumbs instead. Just note that the flavor will change because Italian breadcrumbs have different herbs in them, right? The other thing that I like to always mention is that when you buy breadcrumbs that are seasoned, they often contain a lot of sodium. So that's one of the reasons I just buy the plain whole wheat ones that don't have, they only have the one ingredient, which is the whole wheat breadcrumbs. So you could make that substitution, but just watch how much salt you add otherwise. You may just, not want to add any salt to the dish. But yeah, the breadcrumbs are important because they do help to kind of bind all of this together.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, great question. Thank you. And thanks for watching. All right, so you may have seen I squeezed a little bit of lemon juice in here too, just to brighten it up a bit. And we can add our liquid at this point, just a little, quarter cup or so, just to kind of get it really well integrated. And now we're going to form patties and put this into the fridge for about 10 minutes or so. You really want to make sure that the herbs get well distributed, you know, kind of throughout the whole turkey patties here. So now you can kind of shape these. I have a parchment lined sheet pan here, and I'm just going to make like a little ball and then let these chill for about 10 to 15 minutes or so. So definitely you could use different herbs in this as well. We went with cilantro and mint today, but you could use basil. You could use parsley.
Did you add the mayo?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
yes, I did.
I missed that when I was sleeping.
That's all right. So I added it in with the food processor with the panko, the mint, the cilantro. So it kind of went in with the scallions. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. All right, so I'm just going to do 4 of these and keep moving here. Yes, hi.
Hi. Was that low-fat mayo? And also, how large were are these patties? Like 4 ounces, 6 ounces?
They're pretty big. Yeah, so I would say they're more like 6 ounces.
Okay, thank you.
But you can make them, you know, larger or smaller depending on what you like.
Right.
The mayo that I used today it's a mayo made with avocado oil that I really like. But you can use, you know, whatever mayo you have in the house. Low fat obviously is preferable for heart health if that's something that you're interested in. So yeah, but you can use any kind will work. I didn't end up using the full quarter cup of liquid here because I felt like it was enough. Last time, I think I used more breadcrumbs, so I had to add a little more liquid. But I would say, you know, liquid on the recipe says a quarter cup. Just put it to get sort of the texture that you need, which is this kind of like patty texture. All right, so let's let these sit in the refrigerator.
Emily?
Yes.
I do have one question. I normally don't usually put like cheese in my meat. Is that something that can be left out, or is there something I can replace it with to give it a consistency?
Yeah, so the cheese in the meat is actually a fun one. I just added it mostly for flavor and fun. It's always nice to have cheese and stuff, but you don't have to if you don't want to. If you wanted to keep these like strictly meat, the cheese also helps to bind them together a little bit. So you may just need to add more breadcrumbs or something to kind of help keep them bound.
What about like using an egg instead?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Like the cheese is stretchy and it kind of binds them. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Can you use an egg?
You're welcome. You could probably use an egg. I haven't tried it for this recipe though, so I can't speak to that yet. But you're giving me good ideas.
It looks like you just rolled those into balls and didn't flatten them yet. Do you do that in the fry pan?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I just kind of like left them as a nice little ball. And then I'm going to be using cast iron today because that gets nice and hot, evenly distributed heat throughout. And that's what I'm going to be using for our patties. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Great questions so far. Yes. Another question.
Yes. I never heard of shaping them and then putting them in the refrigerator.
Yeah, it just helps them to hold their shape a little bit more.
Really? Oh,
yeah, it's the same with cookies too. If you've ever made cookies and they just spread and spread, right? Try putting them in the refrigerator for 10 to 15 minutes just to get them, they hold their shape a little bit better. This is not a cookies class though.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. So just a brief note on turkey, and then we'll roll to the next recipe. So turkey is native to North America. It's extremely high in protein, as we all know. There's 25 grams of protein in 90 grams of turkey. And a lot of B vitamins is in turkey as well. Selenium, zinc, what else was in there? Selenium in particular is really interesting because we had a class last week on nourishing your thyroid, and selenium actually helps your body produce thyroid hormones. So it's really, really important for helping to regulate the metabolism. So turkey is a good source of that. And then of course, protein for muscle growth and things like that. Brief note on cilantro. It is, as I mentioned, very clear, citrusy, bold, pairs well with meats, kind of smoky flavors. It pairs really well with chilies. And starchy grains. It kind of helps to brighten things up. You can use both the leaves and the stems when it comes to cilantro. And cilantro can taste soapy if you have a certain genetic trait. So if you are a person that just has never loved cilantro, don't worry. It's probably just a genetic thing that you have. My sister's that way, and I will eat all her cilantro. So just find someone who will eat your cilantro for you. Yes. So that's the first recipe. The second recipe is our nutty gremolata. So a gremolata is an herb condiment used in soups, in stews. You can put it over fish or chicken. You can fold it into grains. You can use it in a sandwich. So it's really versatile. And you can even toss it in, like if you roasted a sheet pan of vegetables and you just want to add some more flavor and nutrition, gremolata is a great way to do that. You can toss, the veggies in that. So this is, again, super easy. We're going to use our food processor again here, and we're just going to pulse a few things together. So I've got some parsley leaves for this one. You're going to notice it's very similar to a pesto, just without the cheese. So there's no Parmesan. I have some toasted. These are great. I love these because they come dry toasted, no salt added almonds. These are really useful because it's nice to have the toasted whole almonds, but usually they come with lots of salt. So here they are without. So we'll pop that in, grind it down a little bit. And we're gonna add a couple of other things too. All right, let's throw in a garlic clove here. Ooh, the skin is popping right off today, making my life easy. Garlic usually puts up more of a fight. All right. So there's our garlic. Let's just, again, help out the food processor, chop it a few times so we don't end up with one big garlic piece somewhere in the middle. Some salt is going into this, some fresh rosemary. I love almonds and rosemary together. It's just the best combination. I don't know what it is, but it's really magic. Let's add some lemon juice. Where did my little juicer thingy go? Here it is. All right, this is a great little tool if you ever need, because it helps to catch the seeds as it's going in. So you can just add, about a tablespoon to 3 tablespoons of lemon juice, depending on what you like. If you like a little more sour, a little more bright, you can add more. Okay, nice and easy. Let's add our parsley. Again, this is just leaves. And how did I take that right off the stem? I just picked it close to the top, right? So you can use your parsley stems for stock. So we're not going to be using the stems today because I want more of a concentrated grassy flavor. All right, get that going. And then we're going to drizzle in our olive oil as it's running. This will help to emulsify the mixture. Gorgeous. All right, you don't want to overdo it, right? This should actually look a bit textured. Like it shouldn't be completely smooth, like a peanut butter. It should have a little bit of texture to it. So let me show you all what this looks like. So it looks exactly like pesto, but no cheese, and it's going to have a slightly different flavor profile because we use parsley today. Gremolata, traditionally, you can throw capers in it, or olives if you want. Of course, that's going to add lots of salt. So just keep that in mind that if you're adding capers, that you may want to decrease the amount of salt that you use. So again, really, really good, stirred on top of a nice, carrot soup or any, stews that you're making where you want a little bit of a nuttiness, a little brightness from the lemon. It's really, really flavorful. We're going to have it on top of our turkey patties today. So I'll show you all. Look at that beautiful bright green color. and you can see how textured it is, right? It's not completely smooth. It's got nice little, like, small chunks of the almonds in there. All right. So I'll set that to the side. Then we'll make our third recipe, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about preserving and all that good stuff, because there's a lot of information when it comes to herbs, and I want to make sure you all have it.
Emily, I have a question regarding garlic.
Yes.
I noticed, hi, this is Denise, by the way.
Hi, Denise.
Hi. I noticed that you didn't chop off the ends of the garlic. Do you ever do that? I never even realized that. I always cut off the ends, and I even take out the inside, the green part. What do you do with your garlic?
Yeah, so actually, it kind of came off with the skin, but you're right, Denise. I usually do just trim the bottom a little bit. You're very observant. I usually trim the bottom a little bit because it's like a little tough and woody. And if there's a germ inside that's really kind of sticking out and green, then I'll slice it in half and fish it out. But if there's no kind of sprout coming out of the garlic, then I don't bother doing that.
All right, thank you. That'll save me time.
Yeah, yeah. The germ it's completely edible. It's just that for some people it can cause some digestive difficulty if it's like sprouted and green. It can be a little bit hard to digest. I've never had an issue with it though, so I don't bother.
I heard that that's the part that really creates the breath issue.
Oh, that's interesting. I had never heard that before. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
All right, everybody.
Emily, I had a question.
Yes.
This is Ellen. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. In the other recipe, you used almonds, and you made the point about the good taste between the almonds and the oregano, was it?
Rosemary.
Rosemary, sorry.
Although oregano is very good too. Yeah.
All right. Well, but so I was going to ask you, would you use another nut, or what other nuts? Just say you didn't have almonds in the house, might you have walnuts,
absolutely.
whatever?
I would use, I think the best substitution, thank you for your question. Your best substitutions there are probably going to be walnuts or pine nuts, but pine nuts can be pretty expensive. But toasted walnuts or toasted pine nuts, just keep an eye if you're toasting them yourself, because they burn very, very quickly. So you want to kind of toast them on a medium heat, stir them occasionally, stay in your kitchen, don't go do anything else. And you can make those substitutions just fine. Okay.
Yes, thank you. I had to unmute again to
Great.
say thank you.
Great.
But you made a good point about the walnuts, because I did that the other day. I toasted them, like 10 seconds too long.
Oh my
but
gosh.
I threw it in anyway.
Yeah, it's they can get very bitter if they go even just a little bit too far. So yeah, keep an eye on them.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And so quick note to the person who mentioned garlic can promote bad breath. Parsley actually can help to promote good breath. So after your meal, it's if you want to chew on a few parsley leaves, it's always a good breath freshening thing. It's fresh, grassy, a little bittersweet, and parsley really adds freshness to all kinds of dishes. It's used universally. The larger the leaves, the more bitter the parsley will taste. So if you have like little baby small parsley, then it's going to be a little bit sweeter, and the bigger leaves are going to taste a little bit bitter. But that's completely normal. We often use it fresh in a salad, toss it into a salad or in a grain dish, or stir it into soups, chop it up and stir it into your minestrone, into your stews for a kind of grassy and fresh finish. So we're going to be using it in our next recipe, which is the dressing. I have some mint leaves here too. So I'm going to do a mix of mint and parsley just because I love them both so much. I couldn't decide which one to use. So I didn't want to play favorites with any of my herb children. So let's throw in both. All right. So I'm just going to take most of the leaves of the parsley and throw those in. And this recipe calls for cucumber, but I didn't have one and I couldn't get one. So we're going to make it without. So it's a salad dressing, right? So at the end of the day, you can always adapt recipes, and all of my recipes are guides. They're really meant for you to, figure out what you like and how you want to make it. So one thing I will say is I have a ripe avocado here. This is a nice trick if you're making, if you want sort of like a creamy salad dressing, but you don't want to add, lots of cream and things like that to it, or buttermilk. So avocado gives it a super nice, kind of like a velvety, moussey texture. So I've got my herbs in there. I've got my avocado. Let's add a little bit of salt. And again, with the lemon, well, I'll just show you the other alternative. If you don't have one of those little strainers, you can use your fingers, the original strainer. So I'm using fresh lemon juice here. And the citrus of the lemon is actually really great in helping you to absorb iron from plants. So as many of you may know, there are different kinds of iron. There's iron that's found in meat and iron that's found in plants. And the iron in plants is a little bit harder for us to absorb. But when you combine it with citrus, whether it's in your dish or in your glass of water as you're enjoying your meal, it actually helps your body to unlock that iron. So it's really powerful, and it's a wonderful thing to add to your salads, right? Because your arugula and spinach salads, they may have lots of iron in them, but if you don't have some form of vitamin C, with that dish, it's going to be a little bit harder for your body to access the iron. All right, so let's turn this blender on. I'm just noticing a little bit of feedback noise, so if someone could just please check their microphone, and we'll see, hopefully mute themselves if that would be helpful. All right. Let's add a little bit of olive oil to help get this going too.
I'm on the other side. I can still do it.
All right, so I'm just noticing a little more feedback noise, so I'm just going to quickly check and see which of our lovely participants has forgotten to mute themselves.
Everything, but I don't see myself.
All right, so I think it's Mary Givens, my dear. Mary Givens, if you wouldn't mind kindly muting your microphone. Thank you so much.
And Judith Goldstein.
And Judith Goldstein, thank you. Thanks, everyone. Hard to keep track. I know it's tricky with Zoom, so just check your microphones. I'm going to add a little splash of water to this just to help it along. You can, this is where the cucumber would have been helpful because cucumbers have a lot of water, right? Perfect. So this is, oh my gosh, it smells so good. So this is still a touch thick. You can see, right? It's kind of still clinging to the sides. So let's add another little dash of water. Again, you don't have to do this if you're using the cucumber because cucumbers are 90% water. And there we go. Perfect. So we'll toss this as our salad dressing. And we're going to I'm just going to show you what this looks like. Oops, I might need a little spatula to even help me out with this. Let's get our pan heated up here, and then I'm going to start to discuss freezing, drying, and preserving herbs. That's coming up next. All right, get our pan nice and hot and get it ready for the turkey burgers coming up. So this is nice and thick. The avocado and the olive oil really, help to make it a nice kind of healthy fat dressing. I have a friend that has a T-shirt with a little avocado on it, and it says, "I'm the healthy kind of fat." I really like that. So I thought that was great. So we always have to remember our avocados, and our olive oil have monounsaturated fats, which are good for heart health. All right, so as that is heating up and as we get ready to make our burgers, just a quick note on drying herbs. So what can you dry? What can't you dry? How do you do it? So here you have some oregano and some sage that I dried from our very own garden. And basically there's two ways of drying. There's the short dry and a long dry. short dry, you can do dill, thyme, and rosemary. And you can put, after you've, washed your herbs, dry them really, really well, put them on a paper towel lined plate and microwave them. So the herbs, you can microwave them uncovered on high in bursts of 5 to 10 seconds. So pretty short, and then just, tossing them between each go for a total of 1 to 2 minutes. That is one of the ways in which you can dry dill, thyme, and rosemary. It's the short dry. Then there's the long dry. So this is if you've got lots of counter space and lots of time. Mint, sage, thyme, rosemary, and oregano. Those are the 5 that dry well with the long dry. So for this, you want to put your herbs on, this is a cooling rack like you would find, from your cookies or something like that. Put it on the counter in a sunny, airy space. Make sure the herbs are spread out in one layer and have enough space around them, right? They need to be in contact with air in order to dry. So let them dry until basically the leaves are dry. So here's our sage, for example. You can see the leaves are completely dried. They kind of crinkle and crunch, right? So they're dry. So that's how you can tell when it's ready. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes longer. And then once they're dried, you can pull the herbs off the stems and just save the leaves in a cool, dry container, especially clean, dry container. When it comes to freezing herbs, let's just get this heat under here a little bit more. All right. When it comes to freezing herbs, now there's a couple ways you can freeze them. One is in your food processor, you can combine 3 cups of herbs with 2/3 of a cup of olive oil and a little pinch of salt, and just process them until everything's chopped. It'll take about a minute or so. Store it in a jar in a cool, dark place, and that'll last easily for 3 weeks. So if you've got, a head of parsley that is going bad, and all of a sudden you want you're going on a trip, not that anybody goes on trips anymore, but if you were going on a trip and you didn't want that parsley to spoil and you're back in 3 weeks, you can, pulse it with the olive oil, and then that'll last for 3 weeks. You can also freeze herb oil and it'll last even longer. So I like to use my ice cube tray, and after I've made herb oil, I just will pour it into the ice cubes and pop it in the freezer. You can also freeze your herbs in water instead of oil, following the same procedure. So the benefit of the oil is that it actually helps to reduce some of the browning that they might get in the freezer. So you can do it in, you can pulse it in water and freeze it that way if you'd like, but the oil will help to reduce the browning. And then whenever you want to use the oil, if you're not freezing it, just give the jar a good shake and then drizzle it over your eggs or your meat or your grains or your roasted vegetables and all that good stuff. And then, of course, you can always make pesto using a variety of herbs and freeze that. So my pan's nice and hot, so let's get our patties going. All right. And I noticed that someone popped a question in the chat, and it seems like someone else addressed it, but if you still have your question, I would be happy to answer it. All right. Sounds like it was taken care of. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is when to use fresh herbs versus when to use dried herbs. This is a big one for folks. So as I get these kind of heated up over here, I'm going to use a little oil. You can use grapeseed or avocado, any kind of high heat oil. Let me get my dish towel, spread that oil out just enough to kind of coat the bottom of your cast iron. And I'm going to pop these right on my pan. And now I'm flattening them down. So whoever said they're kind of shaped like a ball, you are right. But now they're getting a nice smush in the pan. You probably want to do this with a spatula if you are, smarter than I am, which is probably a lot of you. All right. So just patting that down, and we'll let that cook on either side. It should register an internal temperature of 165 degrees. Meanwhile, let's get rid of that. And let's talk about when to use fresh and when to use dried. So generally you want to favor the fresh over dried herbs when possible, simply because they're bolder, they're cleaner in flavor. Exceptions would include, so I'll repeat that again. I generally like to favor fresh over dried. Exceptions include dried oregano, dried mint, and herb de Provence, which is a mix of dried herbs, because those three in particular have very distinctive flavors from their fresh counterparts. So fresh mint and dried mint are not really quite the same. And fresh oregano and dried oregano, again, very distinct qualities. So the hardy herbs, things like thyme, rosemary, sage, savory, oregano, those are best added midway through cooking. And you know, that's really the best time to add them, because it allows the leaves to soften, right? When you're using dried herbs like this, you don't really want to, you know, get a little piece of dried herb stuck in your throat. It's not very pleasant. So you want to add thyme, rosemary, sage, and savory, best added midway through cooking, allowing the leaves to soften and the flavors to meld into the dish. Now, these are, if you're using these herbs, you know, fresh. Delicate herbs like parsley, oregano, basil, marjoram, dill, tarragon, those are really best added toward the end of cooking, right? And you can tell the difference between a hardy herb like rosemary and thyme and sage, and a soft, more delicate, feathery herb like parsley and cilantro and basil, right? They feel different. So the hardy herbs, think midway. The delicate herbs, think more towards the end. That really helps to, you know, even off the heat, after you've cooked something, if you want to add fresh herbs at the end off the heat, really helps to preserve their kind of lighter, more delicate flavors. So never use dried herbs. So that was for fresh herbs. Never use dried herbs at the end of cooking, because like I mentioned, they're not going to soften enough and they won't have time to really infuse the flavor with, infuse the dish with that flavor. So you want to use, if you are using dried stuff, at the beginning. If you are using fresh stuff, you can use it in the middle or at the end, depending on what the fresh stuff is. Any questions about dried versus fresh or preserving herbs?
Emily, could you just repeat what you just said, when to use dried or at the beginning or the end? If it's fresh or
so I think this is in your packets as well. I just want to make sure I included it. Yes. So dried versus fresh. Favor fresh over dried herbs when possible because they're bolder. Hardy herbs, thyme, rosemary, sage, savory are best added midway, and then delicate herbs are best added at the end. And then if you are using something dried, that'll go all the way at the beginning. So for fresh herbs, you kind of have to think two categories, the hardy category and the delicate category. And then for fresh herbs, the hardy category is midway. The delicate category is more towards the end. Does that make sense?
I have a question.
Okay, good.
Can you freeze any of these herbs without adding oil or water? You know, just dropping it in a plastic baggie, something like that?
Yeah, so thank you. That's a really great question. And I don't know that you're going to love my answer. The answer is yes, you can. If you mix them with salt. So this is the other way to preserve herbs that I haven't mentioned yet. You can make what's called an herb salt. So in a food processor, you can process about like 2 cups of your mixed herbs with 1 cup of salt and process them together. And then you can use that salt to rub on chicken or meat before cooking, or even use it at the table. Like if you have beautiful sage from your garden or rosemary or something like that, at the end of the summer, take it, throw it into your salt, process it up, and put it into your salt shaker. You're going to have a nice flavor. You're also going to decrease the amount of salt that you use over time because you're adding, most of what's in there is herbs. So that's another way. Yeah.
2 cups of 2 cups of herbs with how much salt?
Yes. So I have it in your packets here. Make an herb salt. In a food processor, 1 to 2 cups of herbs with 1 cup of kosher salt. Yeah.
Got it.
So it's all in there for you.
Thank you.
So can
Molly, I
you
have a quick
take-
question.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, it's Tina. Hi.
Hi.
How long do herbs stay fresh? Dry them.
I'm so sorry you broke up a little bit there. Would you mind repeating your question?
Sure. How long do dried herbs stay fresh?
How long do dried herbs stay fresh? Okay, so similar to dried spices, 6 months is kind of the window on dried herbs. I know.
Okay, thank you.
It's not like they're going to go bad and make you ill. It's just that they're going to lose flavor and nutrition over time as they're exposed to oxygen and light. So same with your spices, store them in a cool, dark place if you can, and then, try to use them within 6 months.
Okay.
So I just want to address the gentleman's question before you, Tina, which is, can you just grab leaves and throw them into the freezer? You can. They'll turn brown. They'll lose a little bit of their flavor, and they'll get kind of soggy when you pull them out. So I guess it really depends on what you're planning to use them for. I would only ever do that if I were, going to throw them into a soup or something, or a stock or a broth. But otherwise, I don't really freeze the leaves just on their own because they're often just too delicate, even the hardier ones. Any other questions? These have been fantastic.
Emily, I have a question about the turkey burgers. Can you freeze them?
Yes, you can. So I guess that's another way. Yeah.
After cooking.
After cooking. Yeah. So cook them first, then let them cool down, put them into your Ziploc bag and label them. So, and then when you're ready to eat them, you can take them out of the freezer. It's kind of like a meatball. It's the same principle.
Right. And also the avocados. 2 questions on that. One is there a substitute for the avocado if I wanted to make this dressing? And also sometimes I make guacamole and I don't eat it right away and it turns like a dark color. Is it still good?
Yeah, so 2 great questions. So the first one for the salad dressing. This is a salad dressing. So if you wanted to just add lemon juice, olive oil, salt, and throw in some herbs, and blend that up together, you've got a beautiful herb dressing. You don't have to add the avocado. I'm just adding the avocado to make it creamy and, but you don't have to. You can just have like a vinaigrette. That's more of a vinaigrette than this is like a dressing.
Right.
And then your second question regarding the guacamole. So avocados, when they're exposed to oxygen, turn brown. They oxygenate, right? So it's completely normal. One of the things that will help with that is adding lemon or lime, but eventually that will wear off and it will still turn brown. So it is safe to eat. It may not be very appealing to eat, but it is safe to eat. If it smells strange or you've had it for more than 3 days, I wouldn't eat it in that case. A good tip though is take your little bowl of avocado guacamole and then press saran wrap down over the top to be completely, so no air can get in. So you kind of seal it, right? Because the air is really what makes it turn brown.
Okay.
Emily?
Thank you.
Emily?
You're welcome.
Emily? This is
Yes,
Loretta.
hello.
Hi,
Hi,
how
Loretta.
are you? Listen, on
Good,
your
how are
salad dressing, if you didn't want to use olive oil, what else could you use?
You could leave if you're using avocado, you could leave the olive oil out. I know, a lot of the avocado and the olive oil are just adding fat to the dressing. So you could leave the olive oil out if you're using the avocado.
Would you add water or no?
Yeah, you're going to have to add a little water either way because it's going to be thick. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Or you
Thank
could use like a little vegetable stock or some broth or something if you wanted to flavor it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Emily, I have a suggestion for freezing herbs, and that is
Oh,
to
yes,
put them
please.
in an ice cube, and then freeze them, and then pop them into a baggie, and you can just pop them into your stew or your soups or whatever. The problem I had was the herbs floated, so they were all on the top of the ice. So the next time I did it, I did the ice like halfway full, put the herbs in, and after they were frozen, cover them up. I tricked them.
Oh,
So they
that's
were
really
stuck in the
great. I
middle.
love that. That would even be really pretty in like a drink, having that little ice cube float around. Very nice. Well, thank you. That's a nice suggestion. And similar to what I suggested, you can food process the herbs with water, right? Just blend them up a little bit. And that'll help to also kind of encapsulate the herbs as well. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. All right, so it's just about 6:15. Our burgers smell fantastic. We have our little salad here. I'm just going to take one of these off and check it. So you want to, take temperature, make sure there's no pink. These are done, though. I can feel they're nice and firm. I'm going to show you all what they look like, and then you are all going to make these fabulous recipes at home. All right, we have just a quick announcement. Our February calendar is out. So if you did not get an email with our February calendar, certainly feel free to send me an email. I'm also going to include it in your feedback survey today. So if you didn't get the February calendar, you're going to get it with your feedback survey today. All right, everybody. So I'll just show you what our beautiful, look how bright and green and colorful. We used herbs in all 3 of our recipes today. Smells fantastic. I feel like I need like one of those spinning trays. All right, everybody. So it's just a little past 6:15. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for, your attention, your devotion to these classes. Please continue to come and join us. Stay connected to each other. Stay connected to us. Get inspired here in our kitchen, and certainly keep cooking. That's the most important thing, is that we continue to nourish ourselves and nourish our community. So keep cooking. All right, everybody. Thanks very much. If there are any last minute questions, I'm happy to take 1 or 2 now, but I just wanted to offer everyone else an opportunity to sign off.
Emily, can you substitute lime for anything that calls for lemon juice?
Yes. So from a chemical standpoint, yes, they're both citrus. They're both, they're going to have the same kind of chemical effect on your food, but they're not. I wouldn't say they're fully interchangeable in that they just have different flavor profiles. So it's sort of like, a green apple and a red apple. Like they're both apples, but you wouldn't use a green apple where you would use a red apple, and vice versa. So it's a tricky question because the answer is it depends.
Depends on the flavor you're looking for.
Yeah, it depends on the flavor you're looking for. Yeah, but usually, like in a pinch, I would say, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Like the lime is really good in this dressing, actually, with the avocado, if you wanted to try that.
Yeah, lemon bothers my stomach for some reason, but lime does not.
Oh, that's so interesting. Well, lime away then.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you again here soon. Be well, everyone.
Safe home.
Thank you.